Dave. Delighted to be here in Mullingar this morning. Elected representatives, Bridget, thank you for the warm welcome to Mullingar, and Brian, thank you for that very long introduction. I am the CEO of IDA. The job of IDA and my job is to attract foreign direct investment into Ireland. Ireland is home to some of the most innovative and sophisticated companies in the world. I am going to talk a little bit about Industry 4.0 and its importance in a few minutes, but I think my probably role more than anything else is to set the context this morning. And the context is that Ireland has been hugely successful over many years in attracting foreign direct investment. In fact, much more successful than one might think. And we actually have about 3.5 to 4 times the amount of foreign direct investment that one might expect given our relative size if one was to compare other indicators like GDP or population size and so on. We've been very successful in a relatively confined number of sectors, but hugely important sectors, which are the sectors that constitute the modern economy, and they include technology in all its forms, and that's everything from Intel producing wafers up in Leixlip through to the Googles, the LinkedIns, the Yahoos, through to the next wave of internet companies which we see coming into Ireland. It includes the life sciences sector, pharma, biopharma, which we are currently winning a lot of investment. In fact, we're winning a large share of the world's investment in biopharmaceuticals at the moment. Medical devices, hugely important for Ireland, hugely important in this region. Manufacturing and engineering, food and financial services, all key sectors for Ireland. All of those sectors are changing. Manufacturing 4.0 is a manifestation of that change, and as is the impact of technology on all of those sectors, whether it is cloud, social, mobile, data analytics, security, Internet of Things, all of which again are, have an impact on Industry 4.0. Last year, a really strong year for foreign direct investment into this country. In fact, one of the best years we've ever had in IDA's 67-year history. There are now 187,000 people employed in the foreign direct investment base of companies. Last year alone, those companies created just under 19,000 jobs. There's constantly change within the industry portfolio, and we lose jobs as well every year. That is also a feature of the modern economy. And last year, the net gain in the foreign direct investment base was just under 9,000. Those companies are having a profound impact on the economy. They account for 2/3 of all corporation tax that is paid in this country. They account for about 130 billion worth of exports from this country, and the annual pay bill from those companies is about 9 billion per annum. So huge impact on the economy from foreign direct investment. 53% of all employment in multinationals is outside of Dublin. Last year alone, 53% of the jobs created was outside of Dublin. 59% of employment is outside of Dublin. And I suppose what is positive from my perspective is that figure is increasing, and it was up from 49% the year before. What all that means is that 1 in 5 employees now in the Irish economy depend on foreign direct investment, either directly or indirectly, for employment. So I think that shows the importance of it. Strong flow, as I said, that means companies, it's about real companies, real jobs, producing real products and services. And those investments right across the country. You'll have seen recent announcements from Shire Pharmaceuticals, Facebook, First Data, Patterson here in Mullingar, Uber, Oracle, Apple's decision to go into the west into Athenry with a huge data centre, and so on. That investment is being won against a currently positive economic context in Ireland. Hasn't always been positive. As we went out and tried to sell Ireland 4 or 5 years ago, it was a much more difficult context, because you first had to speak about the sustainability of the Irish economy, and then you had to talk about the sustainability of the currency which we use, the euro. And that has changed, and we've seen a situation where investor confidence, as demonstrated by bond yields, is extremely strong. Investor confidence, as demonstrated by the direct investment into this country, is extremely strong. We see indicators like the rate of unemployment coming down. It was as high as 15.2% 5 years ago, and now down at 8.6%. We see the GDP national debt ratio coming down. All of that is very positive, obviously. But that doesn't mean it necessarily will continue, and we do see a lot of pressures from a competitiveness perspective. We see a lot of challenges out there, and the global economy, and I think all experts agree, is probably not going to perform as we would like it this year. The global economy will probably shrink. That means the share of the overall flow of FDI will shrink. That means that Ireland, and that means IDA, is going to have to fight harder and win more market share just to stand still in terms of what we're achieving. There is obviously ongoing fluidity in the international tax environment. There is an OECD base erosion profit shifting initiative, which I won't bore you with the details of, but it's important for Ireland, and it's mainly important because it's trying to drive, obviously, transparency in international tax, and that's a positive thing for Ireland. I think we'll probably, on the round, benefit from that. We have obviously the issue of Brexit, which will be decided within a couple of months now. That's hugely important for Ireland. They're our nearest neighbour, our largest trading partner, and our closest political ally on many enterprise-related issues in Europe. And if there was to be a leave vote, it would have a profound impact on this country from a trading perspective. We share a land border, a lot of work obviously done over many years to try to address the political situation around that land border, and a leave vote would cause us difficulty in that regard. Actually, it probably would have potentially a positive effect from a foreign direct investment perspective, but the impact from a trade perspective would be so adverse it would far outweigh it. So that's going to be an important decision, and it's a decision for the British people to make over the next couple of months, but it will have a significant impact here potentially. I'm asked a lot if the outcome of the election is having an impact internationally. The answer is, at this point, it isn't. It is not something that has registered in corporate America or boardrooms elsewhere at the moment, but obviously at some point we will have to have a government, and policy decisions will have to be made, and investors look at policy decisions rather than the shape and hue of governments, and that's what they will be anxious to see. We launched our new strategy for foreign direct investment in February of last year. It runs from 2015 to 2019. The core focus of that and the core objectives set out in that strategy are extremely ambitious. We talk about winning 80,000 new jobs over the next 5 years. They will emanate from 900 investments. And we talk about investment of $3 billion in R&D over the next 5 years within the IDA client base. And one clear message this morning is that manufacturing will be at the centre of that. There's a huge role for manufacturing in terms of the investments that we are targeting. The ultimate decision about where companies locate, and there are companies in the room, and I think they'll verify this, it's a company decision about where they will locate within the country. But we can influence that. And one of the key elements of the IDA strategy is to try to influence the investment into regional locations. And we have set targets in that regard, and it's the first time we have set targets. And our target is to increase by 30 to 40% the investments into regional locations outside of Dublin over the next 5 years, and that we will win the same high level of investment for Dublin as we have in the past 5 years. But the uplift and the increase will be outside of Dublin. There are good economic reasons for doing that, and there are good socio-political reasons for doing it. The socio-political is obviously we want to try spread the investment and spread the benefits of investment, and particularly in employment terms. The economic reasons are that if you continue to put investment into one particular area, you start to drive up costs, you suck up all of the resources, and we become uncompetitive. So that, I think, is probably the aside from the overall targets and getting investments to Ireland in the first instance, which I'll come to in a moment, the most challenging target will be that dispersal of investment across the country. And for the Midlands, that will also mean 25 new investments over the next period. We have significantly strengthened our regional teams, and that includes in the Midlands, where we've appointed a new regional manager, Paul Veal, who's with us today, and I have a number of other IDA colleagues with me this morning who will be staying for the entire morning. And as Bridget has said, unfortunately I do have to leave and go to another appointment directly after this, but I will have colleagues in the room all day who will be happy to interact with you and who will be taking back the messages from this forum. We play in an international context, so we're out winning investment against international competitors, and there's a few stats that I use a lot just to put that in context. I was in China I think 3 times last year. There are over 75 cities in China with over 1 million people. There are over 35 cities in Europe with over 1 million people. There are over 50 metropolitan areas in the US with over 1 million people. And when I say there are over 1 million people, you can take the population of Beijing is about 19 million. The population of Shanghai is about 23 million. We are competing with them for investment. That is what my team is doing in the 19 offices we have across the globe and the many more geographies that we cover. We are competing with those types of cities and those jurisdictions. And one of the challenges we have in that regard is scale. Ireland in totality is just over 4 million people. So when we're talking to a Chinese investor, or indeed we're talking to a US investor who at least have a better understanding of Ireland, they are looking at Ireland relative to some of these other locations. So we have to demonstrate scale and we have to demonstrate critical mass. And that's why we market Ireland as Ireland in the first instance, and then we market Ireland underneath that as regions. And we're trying to demonstrate that we have the scale to be able to support these investments, that we have the infrastructure, that we have the skills and the population base in order to be able to support them. That is why the regional action plan for each of the regions is so important, and there is a regional action plan for the Midlands, the implementation of which is now led by Pat Gallagher, and IDA will absolutely play its part in that. It's hugely important that we see all parties within the region pulling together and trying to deliver on the actions that are in that action plan. Helpfully, there is a strong base of investment in this region. There are over 33 multinationals with over 4,000 staff employed across the region. And the first order of business for IDA always is to support those clients and help those clients to deliver on their mandates and to help those clients expand. And about 70% of investments come from existing clients. And it is a great base, which includes some global brand names like Abbott, Medtronic, Integra, Utah, KCI. And the international business services side, we have Teleflex, AXA, NPD, Internal Results, Schneider, PPD. We have some great examples of business services cluster and software, including the Ericsson's facility in Athlone. We have a great base of indigenous companies, and IDA and Enterprise Ireland work extremely closely together, and we use indigenous Irish companies as reference sites for attracting international companies. And some great examples again here, like Trin Technologies, TEG, Mergon. Some good examples in Mullingar itself, like Taconic and Patterson Pumps. So having that base is hugely important. And we have other things, I think, that are extremely positive in the region in terms of the sell. We have the fact that there is extremely good quality of life. We have the fact that there is a third-level educational institution, Athlone Institute of Technology. We have the cost differential that I spoke about earlier relative to Dublin. I think there are other propositions, and particularly this region and the M4 corridor around the polymer space. And again, this might be something which is explored more later today. So we have a very strong base from which to build, but there's clearly an awful lot of work to be done. And that's why I think gatherings such as the gathering here today is so important, because people here, I think, pulling together and identifying opportunities is extremely important, and that building propositions around particular areas, and including very much welcome the Additive Lab, and the fact that it's located here in Mullingar, building out that proposition and putting Mullingar and putting the Midlands on the map for something very, very important. Talking about Industry 4.0, as I said, manufacturing is critical for this country's economic development. I think some people thought we might get out of manufacturing. Some people actually, I think, believe we have got out of manufacturing because they don't hear a lot about it. They hear a lot about other types of activity. But 23% of the GDP of this country is dependent on manufacturing. And that's a really high percentage. Across Europe, that's 15% on average. If we look at our nearest neighbour, the UK, they were delighted last year when it moved from 10% to 11% in the UK. So that just, I think, demonstrates the advantage that we have. Ireland is extremely competitive when it comes to high-value, highly regulated, zero-defect manufacturing across pharma, medical devices, microelectronics, and there are those that are going to speak on the panels here this morning and this afternoon, which are much more expert, but again, world-class examples of what can be done. And I know Brian is here from Intel Labs, and just up the road here, fantastic example of what can be done. And actually, I visited 3 different manufacturing plants in Ireland last week. I don't visit them every week. I just happened to be 3 in a row. And when you see what those companies are doing and what they're able to achieve and how they're progressing, it is fantastic. But I also visit some of their comparator plants abroad in the US and in China and in Asia. And when you see where they're going, I realize the level of competition we have to both maintain what we have currently and what we need to grow in the future. And that's, I think, where Manufacturing 4.0 becomes extremely important, because it is at the high value, highly regulated, zero defect level that we can compete. It's not on just basic costs. And therefore, we need to follow the trends and where these trends are going. And I think that means we need to look at what the factory of the future looks like and what Manufacturing 4.0 looks like. We need to look at advanced manufacturing technologies, including additive manufacturing, which obviously you're ahead of here in Mullingar, automation robotics, companion robotics, systems integration, advanced visioning systems, and there are companies in Ireland doing all of these things. Process automated technologies, data analytics. The fact that we have such a strong technology sector in Ireland is a great advantage here when it comes to the next wave of manufacturing, because it is going to be about integrating a lot of those technologies into manufacturing, modelling, simulation, augmented reality. There's been a lot of work done over the past 18 to 24 months by both my own team in IDA, our colleagues in Enterprise Ireland, and reaching out to the existing base of companies and trying to understand what they need currently, where they see themselves going, where they see their parent companies going, and in the case of the IDA clients, and seeing where international trends are going, and trying to shape an offering for the future. And we have now encapsulated that work into a proposal which we have submitted to government and which we're engaged with government on, and that comes with some investment requirements, and I think we may have to wait for a result on those investment decisions for the moment, but the work is there. I think there's some good proposals within it, and it will be about trying to take that forward in some shape or form over the coming months and years. But there's a lot of work also going on at the moment, and there are a lot of supports available both through IGA and through Enterprise Ireland. Those supports revolve around supports for research and development, around lean, around training, around the pilot projects like the Additive Lab. We are lucky in that we have technology centres and research centres which are currently supported, which can provide a lot of support in this space. I want to particularly recognise IMR, I think, which is the nucleus around which a lot of things are happening at the moment. So from our perspective, we have listened very carefully to what our client base is telling us, what Enterprise Ireland's client base is telling us, how they can work together, what is needed, which I think is a combination of more basic research and manufacturing, where we're underserved currently, more research at what are referred to as the higher technology TRLs, the higher technology readiness levels, which means closer to market and closer to what companies need. They need more support around training and upskilling, and they also want the opportunity for pilot projects and demonstrator projects, and that's what we will be working to deliver. So again, I just want to commend all involved in this initiative today. I look forward to hearing the outcome of some of the discussions that are going to happen during the day, and certainly colleagues from IGA will be listening intently, and commend you all for attending this morning. There's a very impressive outturn as I look out at you here this morning. Thank you very much.